And he was like, I want to do some town halls. I want to be able to make sure that I'm available to as many people as possible. So that is only made possible when you all come. So thanks so much for showing up. We really appreciate it. How this meeting is going to go, just so that everybody does get sort of an opportunity to ask questions if they'd like, is we'll have a line right over there. You can see our fabulous staffers wave, excellent. So if you have a question, you can walk over there and get in line. They'll have a microphone and they'll hold it just because that eliminates feedback and other things. So they'll hold it up for you so you can ask your question. There will be a 1-minute timer up here. You have about a minute to ask your question. Sometimes that helps get to the question rather than just the entire story. So if you can think about that as you go through and think about what question you have, that would be amazing. As you can see, we have some rules of engagement that we found will be helpful. That if there's interruptions, then that's hard. You see, we have these amazing law enforcement in the office. We're in their room. We're so grateful to them and grateful for the service that they provide. We want to make sure that this meeting is respectful, that everybody's heard. So please don't interrupt. Don't interrupt people as they're trying to ask their question. Don't interrupt the congressman as he's trying to answer the questions. That would be really helpful for us. And then, let's see, another question that I have here. If you have another question, you're welcome to get back in the line. But when you get up, if you can ask a question, because it's hard if you give him 10 questions and then he can't answer all of those. So make sure you're asking a question. And then this meeting will end at 1:30. So just so you know that his time, the reality is we need to leave about there. So this won't go longer than that. If you have other questions or you'd like to join us at our other 2 remaining town halls, love to have you there. But this meeting will end at 1:30. We'll try to get kids like a 10-minute heads up of we have about 10 minutes left, but we'll do our best about that too. So
he is a little bit feeling under the weather, so just kind of understand he might have to take a break to drink some water. So if any questions come up after the town hall meeting, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to pass on the questions to him. And then as a reminder, the Dignity Index is something that we use at the City Council. It just reminds us to be civil and know this is a dialogue and it's not an argument, and we just want to maintain that personal space. So, Blake Moore, would you like to come up?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Love working with Clearfield. Clearfield's got a great city council and a mayor, but they have an even better youth council that we get to interact with quite a bit, actually. So thank you for hosting us today and appreciate you kicking us off. I woke up at 2 this morning, not feeling great. I think it might have something I ate. So I will keep my distance from you though, just in case it's anything other than that. But I'll be fine. I have to sit down. So thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for carving out your time over your lunch. Over the lunch hour. Really appreciate it. We're trying to stagger these so we can meet different schedules and everything. So we're doing some midday, some the early evening hours. So thanks for that. We was up Box Elder last night. I'll just highlight 2 quick things and then let's jump right into questions. And I appreciate you going with this. My team's awesome. They're amazing. We just want to be structured so we can get to as many questions and concerns as possible. And we'll go through it, and I will give you a response. I don't have control over everything that's going on. I can't take credit for everything that's going on, but I'll give you my perspective, be candid, and I really appreciate your willingness to engage. So, 2 things. I can't not be anywhere and not highlight and remind folks, especially as they walk in and saw a younger child here, please. If you have grandkids, if you have children, anywhere under the age of 18, but really the prime spot is, I would say, under 14 or 12 years old, for sure, any age from 2 to 10, and definitely if you know of anybody that's having a child right now, make sure to sign up for the Investment America, the investment accounts for kids. Okay, this is a program I got to be involved with, and this will be something that if we do it right and we kind of get together and do this right, we will be a society that starts saving for retirement at the age of 0, as opposed to when we typically get around to it at the age of 30, right? And I'm using that age of 30 as just a general marker. I don't have specific data on when that really is, but think about graduating, you've got some student debt, pay that off a little bit, you do what you can to start contributing to a 401k or a Roth or a traditional IRA. We have an opportunity here to start that much earlier. And the benefit of an additional 30 years of investment in that child's future, I think is going to be monumental, right? And I hope we can see that play out. Happy to provide more details or specifics on that program, but it's very easy to sign up. There's an app for it, and we're trying to make it even more easy and seamless to do that. So there is government funded, there's seed money that comes to any child born in the next 4 years, starting last year, starting with January 1st, 2005. And then there's a lot of philanthropic dollars coming. So private foundations and companies of individuals that are contributing to this. Michael and Susan Dell, they've pledged $6.25 billion to help start these accounts for kids in the ages of 2 to 10, because that age group doesn't get the initial seeding account that we started it with. And so he and his wife are trying to help fill the gap. Companies are coming on board saying, hey, we're going to participate in this. And I remember when I was first kind of looking for jobs out of college, one of the benefits that was starting to get, I think, more ubiquitously offered was like help with tuition reimbursement. That became more prominent. Then it was already a thing, but I remember that being, some companies were doing others. And then it became kind of widely done, right? And so contributing to an employee's children's investment account could be a really unique thing. It's a great opportunity for companies to come up with another option as a benefit to employees, and the employee obviously can start to think about their kid's future. So please, if you want any more details or information about it, either ask about it or get in touch with our office to help navigate some things. The other thing that I want to highlight is a bill that I've just introduced. It's called the Anti-Fraud Fund Act, and it is something I'm very excited about and bullish on really getting at the heart of the fraud issue, because for the last year and a half you've heard a lot about waste, fraud, and abuse, right? I've even called out some things that were, there was a big exaggeration, right? And have been working closely as the chair of the healthcare task force within the budget committee with CMS and some individuals that work within CMS to really identify some sincere ways to be able to save taxpayer dollars and kind of set us on a course to move away from some of the things that have just happened. And oftentimes in these programs, they happen, and I don't fully understand why they get to such a point where they can be so egregious, right? And so there's a lot of focus on this right now, and it's good substantive work, and I encourage you to take a look at some of the specifics. For example, just take hospice, for example. So hospice in the Los Angeles area, one point recently had approximately, based on data that we've got from CMS, had approximately like 1,500 companies kind of servicing and operating in that area. Compare that to San Francisco, that had like 39, right? Utah has, I think, 60 total. So 1,500 is a huge anomaly, but these things just kind of happen, and then they get going and going, and you don't have the checks to be able to put them in place, and it gets rampant, okay? So there's an identification that numerous companies are actually signed or sort of established at the same address, in the same physical address. You can't have 60 companies at the same physical address. But this stuff flies under the radar sometimes, and so CMS goes about, uses their resources to go do site visits and identify them. There was a point, and I think it's even more now, there was a point where they had canceled 400 licenses. And if you were running a business and your license was canceled, you would call in. There was only 12 at that point. When I got this briefing about 2 months ago, there was only 12 that checked in. Those 12, probably absolutely legitimate, right? But there was a lot of licenses that were getting established and billing that was going on, and they weren't actually providing services. So they've now followed up in when a Medicare number is used to start a hospice service, right? CMS is sending out letters to these locations, to these individuals, confirming, are you in fact on hospice? And they've gotten about a 15% return rate from several states, actually, that were erroneous or fraudulent, right? So it takes some resources to do this type of stuff, to be able to make sure, put the checks and balances, but that is saving billions of dollars to back into the Treasury Trust Fund, money that doesn't have to go out the door. They can be used to help with those programs for all the legitimate work that they are doing. The vast majority of it is all legitimate, but we've got to be willing to kind of step in and do that. So I got to be the lead on this particular bill. Excited about it. Happily take a look at it. We put out information on it, either our website and social medias. So take a look at it, and it's the real substantive work that I would encourage you to identify. Because there's a lot of talk about this. There's a lot of stuff out there. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to our office to kind of help you sift through what's real and what's exaggerated and what would really truly beneficial. So skin substitutes, this particular medical procedure. I don't know much about the concept of it, but it was in the range of $150 million of an annual expenditure, and it got up into the tens of billions. And this stuff, if you don't put real strong measures in place, then it can be really rampant. And so it's something that I'm excited about. And again, the amount of money that we're talking is not going to solve our balanced budget. It's getting to a balanced budget, but it is a huge, huge important aspect to be able to run things more efficiently and more responsibly. So I encourage you to take a look at that. Two things that I'm excited to be a part of and working on are the investment accounts for kids and finding legitimate, true aspects for the product. So let's jump right into it. Take it away.
My name's
Good to see you again.
So, quick comment, if you want to stop fraud, you might want to look at the head of the snake. He's pardoned more people who owed billions of dollars in fraud. This man, that means when he pardons them, all the people they committed fraud against, they no longer have to pay. So millions of people have been screwed out of money. I was in the military for 22 plus years. I've taken my oath of office several times. I took it serious. Why are you not taking your oath of office serious? You're letting a criminal do whatever he wants. And it's pathetic that your party is allowing him to just run over everything. You're not checking him. You're just allowing him to do it. There's been so much criminal activity. If you guys to stand there, it just blows my mind away. Why are you silent?
I understand there's frustration. You can always show up and criticize me to the extent I believe I have adhered to my oath of office. You may disagree with that. I know you're frustrated. You've come to my town halls for almost 6 years now. I appreciate it, right? I think you've been encouraged by my work. I think you've been frustrated by my work. I think we've found both that. It's great. So, so there'll always be criticism of not holding the executive branch accountable from Congress. And for my 6 years, my approaching 6 years, I remember folks coming to my town halls furious that I wasn't doing enough against Biden, furious that I'm not doing enough against Trump. I think back to the vaccine mandate and measures that I did not agree with that, and we were involved in many different areas. Eventually went into a court case, and I think it got resolved in the right situation. Look at the anti-weaponization fund, the 1.8 billion, right? That was not going to pass Congress, and you've seen that completely be, put into check.
No, we
There was it's not going through. The Todd Blanche had to, he had to commit and reaffirm to senators. That action was in the Senate, and there was multiple very Trump supportive senators that were very frustrated with that whole entire concept, and you saw significant pushback. I've seen calls to impeach certain judges, and We never made a move on any of that. We came up with actually better ideas on how to address some of the judicial review of things that go on in our day-to-day that are not at the will of the executive branch. And so, yeah, I absolutely get that's a frustration, and we'll take this continually to do whatever we can to
It really didn't answer my
because
question.
I do absolutely believe in co-equal branches
Do
of
you have a
government.
specific thing?
I just listed several, right? So we'll go to the next question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is, I'm from, today's my son's first day of second grade. Plan to use my time off to pick him up, but I'm choosing to be here instead. So appreciate your candor, appreciate you showing up even though you're not feeling well. I've left a lot of messages with your team over the last year and a half. Doesn't really seem like those messages have gone through, so I just want to list them real quick before I ask my question. First is Doge and the colossal failure that it has been. It created more fraud and abuse than it found.
Yeah.
Second is the outrageous lack of prosecutions from the Epstein files.
Yep.
And third, which we've already talked about a bit, is this administration that is continually ignoring the Constitution and their oaths to it. Representative, you are a leader in the House. You have power in Washington to demand subpoenas and bring binding resolutions to the floor. My question, I guess, is what specific legislative action will you take this month to check the executive branch?
Good, thank you, folks. And if you want to grab a chair, and we're trying to do this so we can be more systematic, man. You may have I don't know if it's my dad was on one of those for a little while. They're no fun with the booth. But feel free to grab or do something there. So let me talk Doge, because actually that's why I wanted to introduce the work that we're doing on this fraud piece. There's a gal named Kim that works in the CMS. You'll never hear of her name. When she was asked to come back and work within CMS, she asked Dr. Oz. She said, "Hey, I will come back, but only if we can truly go after the root and the issues with the rampant fraud." I believe she worked in the first administration. I don't know how long, the first Trump administration. You're not going to hear about her. She's not some sensation on social media. She's not an Elon Musk, and she is providing me consistent updates. I candidly just called her this morning. She's sending me a new, fresh update on some of the numbers. And when I was meeting with her, I said, it is frustrating that there's all this work that can be so substantive going on, but with Doge, a lot of that was overshadowed and there was credibility lost. And I even remember highlighting it in a setting like this. I think it was probably on a telephone town hall where I admitted a lot of it was exaggeration. Elon Musk said that it was going to find $4 billion a day, $1 trillion worth of fraud. Like that's not out there. And I knew it right from the start, and that was a frustrating part because I was excited about the Doge effort. In fact, I led an initiative in Congress to start what's called, it's a consulting thing that I used to do when I worked in the consulting industry. It's a 2x2. It's a ease of implementation, and you graph that times level of impact. So there are things that are like quick wins. They're super easy to implement, and they'll actually provide some good, super easily to implement, and they'll provide some good impact. And then there are things that are really hard to implement, but it will be very good, right? Those are your long-term focused, sustainable. So I had this whole thing ready to go, mapped out. Every member that was involved in this, it was a bipartisan group of people. They were going to start submitting. I remember Vivek Ramaswamy, when he came to the very first meeting, it was even before the new Trump administration had taken over in late January. He was like, where are the Democrats? Because, most legislation has to pass in a bipartisan manner. And I was like very encouraged by that, right? And then Vivek left immediately, which I was like, well, why go through all that trouble if you're gonna just leave right away? But it is what it is. And yeah, he's in Ohio and he's running for governor, and I get that. But as soon as things started, they didn't involve us much on the congressional side. In fact, it was kind of disheartening because I was really excited about that initiative. So I wouldn't characterize it as that they have caused more fraud than not. I don't believe that at all. But I'm telling you, I think a lot of it was exaggerated. But the frustrating part to me was some of the personnel things that Elon was in charge of. I don't know the specific percentage, but it's top 5% federal workforce in the country in northern Utah, right? And very conservative district, and also top 5% of federal workforce. And so when I saw the send me 5 bullet points, what you did last week, I was offended by that as a and then we communicate that to the administration within weeks. President Trump announces, Elon, you're not involved, you're not over personnel issues, right? I mean, that's for each of the cabinet members. That's where the focus, as a lot of that happened with Doge, Dr. Oz and his team of these folks that you'll never hear of, that are working heavily within CMS and that some of the other work that they're doing, they're going and finding these really substantive things to do. And unfortunately, it was overshadowed, but there is a lot of still good work that's being done. That's what my bill is going towards, is the things that I promise you we could all agree on. If we don't let the politics of anything get in the way, you can agree there cannot be 60 plus hospice companies at one location.
Oh, yeah, military contract,
Right,
Great.
and so let's not interrupt. Let me just get through some of this. I appreciate it though. I like passion, trust me. And so that's the concept of Doge, because I was like front and center with it, and then I was super frustrated that the administration took a lot of stuff on their own, and then it became a lot of strife. And you don't just fire somebody. You actually go in and work and say, hey, where is the biggest issues? You do it more like a turnaround CEO would do, and that's not the way that was handled, particularly the personnel issue. I could walk you through many of Lisa Ross Kelly's days in and out of the IRS. We went and battled and fought for positions that were going to be on the chopping block that I think were erroneous to be even considered as potential firings. And we were in and out of Hill Air Force Base and the IRS working consistently with them. That would solve everything? No. Did we try to make the point of retention is far less expensive than firing and then just rehiring? That was the part that frustrated me the most, was there was positions that were being removed and then they were started to hire again for that. That I'll give you. It's a very wasteful approach to doing it, and no company would ever really operate like that. We always try to retain talent first before you replace and hire. So a lot of that, it's full admission, but again, I was saying this over a year ago. I still remember there was a newspaper article that took some of the things I was talking about on town hall and say, hey, Congressman Moore, admits and identifies there's a lot of exaggeration going on, and I'm here today. I maintain consistency knowing there is major issues. Improper payments has been a bipartisan issue for a long time, right? And these things that I've started today's conversation with, they truly matter. And like I said, there's I gave the anti-weaponization piece. That's kind of one of the most recent elements that we go back and forth on, what the administration was working on, where Congress had done its pushback. Pardons were brought up yesterday, and there's way too much power for the executive branch to have pardons. From Biden to Trump, there are times that I've seen it, I just flat out don't get it. Would love to be able to figure out a way to address that, but and you said just the last few weeks, I've been home and I've been trying to do what I can to get around and communicate with you folks. So let's go to the next question. Thank you.
Hi, my name's I live in. I did take time off work to be here today, so if I go a little over, I hope you'll give me a little bit of grace.
You're great.
I want to address a couple of things in your opening remarks. You did mention about how we need to have the checks and balances to avoid the fraud. I want to remind you that you are our check and balance against the executive, and right now, a lot of us do not feel that you're representing us. And I also want to just say that I have called your office often, and I really appreciate your staff. They've always been very professional and polite, and they answer the phone, which is more than we get from our senators. However, they also don't have any answers. They take down my concerns. They say they'll mention it to you. I never get any answers to my questions. I get maybe a generic email if I go to your website. Sorry, I'm getting way off topic.
You're great.
But being that we are here on a work day, and that you do work for us, I thought it was appropriate to conduct a performance review. I wanted to mention that the big beautiful bill cut more than $1 trillion from health programs used by the poorest Americans and delivered $1 trillion to tax cuts in the wealthiest 1% of Americans. Doge cuts to USAID have resulted in the deaths of over 600,000 people, 2/3 of whom were children. It's also harmed our scientific research community. I work at Huntsman Cancer Center. I was there when our biggest grant got canceled, and all the top leaders were involved in getting that restored because some Doge bro used AI to decide it wasn't a good grant. It was ridiculous. Also, now we have harms in our food supply, which you may be experiencing firsthand today. I noticed that you called your children's savings account the Investment America accounts, which is probably a better choice than naming them after an adjudicated rapist and a credibly accused pedophile. You and your Congress has confirmed the most inept, unqualified, and corrupt cabinet in history. I disagree with the vaccine change recommendations from RFK Jr. He is not a medical professional. I haven't seen that you've done anything to stop ISIS's violence attacks on our city or the abuses happening in detention centers. I haven't seen you address the genocide in Gaza. I haven't seen you address the war crimes committed in the Caribbean with bombings of Venezuelan fishermen. The illegal war in Iran continues on.
6 months.
There's continued violations of the War Powers Act, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. You removed the protections from Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante, and you didn't even consult the tribal nations who were most harmed. You're silent when the president lies about 2020 election. He attacks the press, in particular female reporters, very brutally. He defies court orders and constantly is falling asleep in public. And we all are seeing open corruption from the Trump family enriching themselves in myriad of ways. My rating of your job performance is unsatisfactory, needs improvement, fails to meet expectations. How would you rate your performance and why?
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Most agree, I'm not doing a great job in your opinion. That's fine, right? I'm here. I'm gonna take any criticism as part of this role. I don't think it's fair, and I wouldn't categorize my time like that. And I wouldn't categorize my performance and my team, and nor my team's approach as well. So thank you for recognizing how hard my team works. And there is obviously a lot to get into that. Let's also remember, I said I don't agree with your version of that, but I'm not going to sit there and talk about how, my own person.
Are you above
So, here's what I'll say. I think one of the highest compliments that was given to me during the most recent primary season, you were watching that, I'm not good enough for a whole bunch of those folks. I'm not good enough for a whole bunch of the folks that are apparently here today.
You're a coward.
My wife, let's not spread out stuff. Like, I'm trying to be respectful. That's the one thing we asked here, is to not shout out and interrupt, right? That's all I've asked for today, okay? That's the one thing I've asked. So I expect that at a minimum, right? So if I look at me, I get to go through a situation where everybody's mad at me at some point. But I think everybody's found something to agree with me on.
No.
Did you agree with my statement on Greenland? And if you don't know it, you're not doing enough research. You're not trying to give me the benefit of the doubt. Right? So if you don't agree with my statement on Greenland, I think it's pretty substantial. I think it's important to recognize that type of stuff. Because there was a lot of erosion of NATO, which I'm a big supporter of. Right? So go, take a look at my statement on Greenland. Please don't forget, day 3, when the majority of the members of my party did not certify the election. What did I do? Certified the election, voted for January 6th bipartisan commission, the one that should have come to fruition. Right? I have had 6 years of, actually either making at least everybody, if somebody's been angry with the decision I made, and I guarantee you, everybody's been pleased with the decision I made. And I'm in the middle of this, going through it on a daily basis, and I'm never going to be able to have a perfect solution for everything that everybody wants to have. And that's the way I would rate my job performance, as I look at it, knowing what I know now before I ran for this, is if you're only making one cadre of people happy, all you're doing is political pandering, right? I have made virtually every single person on the political spectrum mad at me at some point. And that's what I take out and saying, because I'm trying to be thoughtful, critical in the approach that I do and what I can accomplish. We were sitting in a closed door meeting about trade with Howard Lutnick. And one of the staffers came over to me and said, "Hey, Blake, you can be yourself. You can be as critical as you want." I hadn't given my questions yet. And I'm like, yeah, everybody seems to be pretty positive right now. And I know that my colleagues aren't necessarily as positive about some of the trade decisions that are being, the tariff decisions that are being made. And I'm like, so you're good, right? Chairman's good? And I laid it out for him. And at the end, he had no response. And he looked at me and he said, okay, I needed to hear that. I laid out what is tough for manufacturing facilities. I laid out what's tough for the input costs, and highlighted a whole bunch of things that were my constituents and my companies in my district and Utah in general were struggling with. Please go look. I was very frustrated with RFK and everything associated with CMN. We have a boy, a 10-year-old, who's neurodivergent on the autism spectrum. Please go look at my questioning to him, right? I tried to do it in a respectful way, but I made it very clear that we got to be, data-driven and science-driven and not just, I think they overpromised on what they could do with autism. It became part of President Trump's first address to Congress. They had made big promises that they would be able to identify some of the root causes of autism. I was for a second like, okay, maybe there's something there. And then when that declaration came out and I did my own research, I researched it, I was very underwhelmed, if you will. So I made that point. I work on a daily basis with USTR, the U.S. Trade Representative, to identify, hey, we've got an issue at Procter & Gamble, right? President Trump put a 50% tariff on Canada. I don't think that was the right decision, not Canada, but Brazil. And we've got wood pulp that can't be sourced in the U.S. We've got it's an absorbent material for our big plant up in Box Elder, and I go directly to them. I have to be able to work with every administration that whenever I'm in Congress, for as long as I'm going to be serving in this role, I will have to have a relationship with the administration. I will work with them. But the highest praise that I got was during the primary season, as I started this response, was, look, we have somebody that is supported by President Trump, but he is also somebody that's willing to push back. This was a state legislator that has been very close to the work that I've been doing, and that's what he took his one moment to communicate to this big group of people about, what representation you do have. That is something that I know I've done. Voted to override vetoes, and the like. So I, again, will always accept the criticism, and I'm going to do my best to showcase that there's a whole lot more to it than either what I get criticized or praised for. Please.
Congressman Moore, first I'd like to thank you for holding this town meeting. I'm from Utah. I see all this as my neighborhood.
Good.
These are all my neighbors. But when I look out this window at the Great Salt Lake, I see a firestorm headed towards our neighbors. And I realize, because you talk a lot about past performance, and I appreciate the $4.5 million that you pushed through Congress for water reclamation down near, I think it's Farmington Bay.
Yep.
And the $10 million Celeste Malloy pushed through the House Ways and Means Committee for the Great Salt Lake.
Appropriations, but
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
However, that is far short of the $1 billion requested by the Utah delegation. And I want to know in the future, not past performance, how are you going to step up your game on this? And are you willing to hold your party hostage until this is taken care of?
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So in addition to some of those, those other funding mechanisms that we've been able to accomplish there. My freshman term, as a freshman member of the Natural Resources Committee, passed the Salient Lakes Ecosystems Act. Like I passed 4 bills my first term. I had like 5 other colleagues in the freshman class that even passed one. That was it. Like, I have tried to find a productive lane, and using things like this opportunity to really what's going on at the state legislature level, governor's level. We pushed that legislation through with Jared Huffman, Democrat out of Northern California, who also has a terminal lake in his district. Like, we got that done. It was not an easy thing to do, and that created a way for the U.S. Geological Survey to be involved in this issue. It kind of triggered their ability to be involved and help identify, study, provide best practices on what we do going forward. And you can see a throughput from that bill to a point where President Trump really did submit $1 billion request in the budget. Now, you understand Congress. The president actually doesn't finalize the budget. They make a whole bunch of budget requests. He made that submission, which was awesome because it kind of shines a light on it. But I don't think anybody was like, okay, we're gonna get $1 billion this year. That just wasn't gonna happen. But it does move this in that progression from what we got done with the Salient Lakes Ecosystems Act to today with real dollars coming here, right? And so it's a good thing. And we're gonna keep pushing for it. And it's something that I'm very passionate about because, I mean, I literally have a track record of being able to get things done in this regard. Just last week, the budget director, Russ Vogt, who now brings it up to me about, again, let's go with it. Who now brings it up to me whenever I see him, and this has happened the second time. He said, hey, how's things going with the Great Salt Lake? I'm like, well, we had the driest winter on recorded history. A few years ago it was great, but it's been really tough. And he mentioned he was coming to a conference here in Utah, and we scheduled him out to go on a fan boat, right? He had to cancel that because he had a last minute meeting at the White House that he couldn't come out to, but that was scheduled for last Friday, right? And so I'm constantly doing virtually everything I can to work on this. The budget requests from presidents, again, I'm speaking of 6 years of experience here, they always end up being vastly different. But I can look at my track record and say, I don't know how I could have done any more than what we've physically been able to do so far. The state is finding good ways that if we do get money, they can put it to good use. Obviously, we need more water in the system to really, really solve this problem in the long run. But we can make Phragmite and seepage and evaporation. We can do that's what we can use our dollars for, and we'll fight for every dollar that we can. So, thank you.
I'm I'm a senior citizen. I have a sister who is mentally and physically challenged. She is also a senior citizen. So I want to talk about Social Security. So you have passed the big, beautiful act, which cuts $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, but it really doesn't save us a lot. The biggest spending cuts are from Medicaid and food stamps, programs that serve low-income Americans. The Chief Business Officer estimates these changes will cause 11.8 million people to lose their health care insurance by 2034. Fiscal responsibility indicates that you should be increasing taxes, not for the poor or the middle class, who pay the majority of the income taxes. The United States has 23.8 millionaires in the United States, and only 1% of them pay taxes. If they paid their fair share, we probably wouldn't have the problems we have. My question is, what is the plan for Social Security and Medicare, and how will it affect senior citizens, disabled citizens, and children? Is there a plan in place?
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let me share a quick statistic that the highest earners in our country cover 70% of all tax receipts. So all tax revenue is paid by the highest earners. That's at 70%. That's from the Tax Foundation. That's not from the House Conference. That's not from the House GOP Conference, right? That's the reality in the tax world. So there's a lot of times, and it was mentioned earlier, so I'll just quickly address it. There's a lot of times that you will hear, oh, the Republican tax policy is a massive giveaway to the billionaires and not to lower income Americans. Okay, so a family of four that, let's say, makes $75,000 a year doesn't pay any federal income tax. Now, there's sales tax that they go through on a daily basis. We don't set that. They don't pay any federal income tax. Why? Because when in 2017, Republicans did something to the standard deduction. They doubled the standard deduction. If I were to have everybody raise their hand, which I'm not asking, please don't do this, I assume you would take the standard deduction. Most people do. 91% of Americans do take the standard deduction. We increased that standard deduction, particularly for lower income individuals that are on Social Security, and it was kind of dubbed a no tax on Social Security. What it was a deduction for folks on Social Security, and so that was a reduction of tax that the tax bill that they owe. So all of our tax provisions that we do in our tax bills from 2017 to the one we did in 2025, they have an income cap. So the child tax credit is you're not able to take advantage of the child tax credit if you make more than a few $100,000 a year. So only folks that are lower than that tax bracket do that. So like a billionaire, and that's the majority of our tax bill is the child tax credit, the standard deduction. Those are the biggest pieces of it, right? And so it's just simply not true. And the Washington Post, actually, in two scenarios, I'm using an example for them. They have called out Bernie Sanders for constantly saying this is just some tax giveaway to the wealthy. It's just not the case. If you look at the specifics of the data, it's just not the case. Okay, if you're not paying taxes, say you're in that, you're making $50,000 a year, you've got a couple kids, and you're not paying taxes, yes, you're not going to get a tax benefit or tax break in that situation, except for something that I did on the adoption tax credit. I can talk about that if you'd like. And so there's not going to be a direct impact to that individual. Or if you're at or below the poverty line, you're not getting a tax break. There are programs and safety net programs that are there that exist still. The Washington Post also just put out a recent article just like last week in support of the work requirements that we put on the SNAP and the Medicaid piece. And it's worth going through this. This hasn't gone into effect yet, but folks, this was something that everybody believed in the late 90s, early 2000s. And we've kind of gone away from it. It's worth going through this process to try this again, right? But there's many exemptions with this. If you have a dependent, you have an ailment, something to that effect. We've gotten to the point where a work requirement associated with Medicaid benefits, it's going to be an okay thing. And we'll just have to see over the next few years how it plays out. But I believe that it can actually be done, and I believe that it can be implemented well. So with respect to Social Security, Social Security has a approximately $2 trillion trust fund associated with it still, right? And that is depleting since 2008. There's been I think 10,000 or so on average of new recipients to these programs. Our worker to beneficiary ratio is much thinner now than it was when, say, Social Security started back in the 1930s, right? So there's a lot of structural problems to Social Security, but it's within like the next 6 to 8 years, there is the concern of the trust fund being fully depleted, and when that happens, there will be a statutory 18 to 24% cut to the benefit, and we'll be mostly operating off of almost the monthly or annual FICA that is collected, right? So Social Security, even when the depletion happens, it's not going away. The program will still be there, but there will be a cut to the benefit. The single best way to address this is through a fiscal commission, and we passed it out of the budget committee in the 118th Congress. if you follow my newsletter, you'll know how excited I was when that happened. I think that provides the catalyst to be able to get some of the things done that need to be done with respect to addressing this potential shortfall in Social Security. And we're doing a symposium, bringing this up again. The outgoing chairman of the budget committee, Jody Arrington's in Texas, and we're having another session on this in, I think it's September 21st, to be able to highlight the need for this. Committee for Responsible Federal Budgeting. I'm on a bipartisan group called the BFF, the Bipartisan Fiscal Forum, is one of our big initiatives. And we had several Democrats that were supporting this when we had the majority. And I'm hopeful that we can get this re-upped again. The reason it didn't end up getting to the floor and didn't end up getting passed was because there are a handful of liberal and a handful of conservative outside groups that had some pressure into Congress at that time. 117 Democrats, I believe, at the behest of AARP, signed a letter of not supporting the Fiscal Commission, when I'm just telling you right now, the only catalyst that I believe you can go and get some change done and get out ahead of this looming issue is through a Fiscal Commission. And I'll quote one of the Democrats that said, I understand the concern that AARP may have, but you're basically making it so we're stuck doing nothing, and doing nothing, the 6 to 8 years from now will be an immediate and a mandatory cut to the benefit. And so why are we pushing back so hard? Why not let the process happen? Let's engage in this and see what can come of it. So those are areas that I'm heavily involved with and care a lot about, and I hope to see it. Again, we're doing something in mid-September to try to highlight the need for it. I don't believe it would happen before the end of this Congress, but it would definitely be right for an opportunity if we get the administration on board, which I think we can, and I know we can get a bipartisan vote on it in Congress. So please.
My name's and I just wanted to come and tell you thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
I was born and raised in Utah. I don't look like it, but I was. My dad spent 22 of his 26-year career in the Air Force Station at Hill Air Force Base.
Who's it? Hill that long?
Uh-huh.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I don't know who he pissed off, but we did.
Best place.
My father-in-law was Navy. My husband's retired Navy. I have a child that is active duty currently Navy. Not very many people know this part about me, but I am also registered as a daughter of the Revolutionary War. My family's been around for a minute.
Yeah.
I want to say thank you because the lack of leadership, the corruption, there is no word in the English history or English dictionary to express the corruption. So I'm doing my best here. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be as actively involved in my local politics as I am now. So my question to you, I have a laundry list of questions, but I'll bite on your fraud bill. We're trying to refit a ship that's already been built to go from magnetics to steam to propel the jets off the ship. Who's benefiting from that? We had a contract for our Navy Blue Angels uniforms, less than $100,000 a year to do their uniforms, and now on a no bid contract in Virginia is more than $1 billion. Who's benefiting from that? So where in your fraud bills are covering the fraud? We are paying so much money for things that don't need to be paid. Our president's family has now weapons businesses, companies. Barron all of a sudden has $150 million he's worth. For what? For what? You say that you're working on the fraud, but you're just, look over at Doge. These people are making, taking your money. Yeah, it is important. We're not saying that the system isn't broken. But in my lifetime, we've had more Republican presidents and more Republicans in charge than we have had Democrats. So take responsibility for that.
1,000%. I love that.
Take care of our troops.
any concept, and if you would provide us more specifics on.
Oh, I
some
got a
of
laundry
these,
list, oh,
like finding areas that no bid contracts, I think in the arc of history are never gonna prove to be something that's valuable and that would provide real, fiscally responsible approach to anything. So I'm supportive. I just saw another one that came from Attorney General or not Attorney General, but here in Utah that I'm kind of bewildered with. No bid contracts I don't support, I don't agree with, not in the weeds on any of that kind of specifics, but happy to absolutely look into it more and more. And then efficient ways to do things. Like one of the things I'm actually really proud of was Kenyon Bell, General Bell at Hill Air Force Base. Again, thank you. That's an amazing legacy that your family has too. So thank you for that. There was like 30 to 35 F-16s that were in backlog in our hangars here at Hill Air Force Base. And like this guy came in, obviously with an amazing team around him. They switched up a few things in the workflow, and they eliminated that entire backflow and then started working on the F-35. There are really good ways that our depots, that's I'm the chairman of the depot
we don't
caucus.
work on the F-35s, they come off of the
Ma'am,
line
I'm just giving
and
you
Northrop
examples.
fixes
I'm just
them.
giving you-
We
I'm
can't
just-
even touch them.
I'm just giving examples about how our depots and our military personnel do an amazing job in many cases. But the steamship thing, I'm not up to speed on that. Like, we've got to be able to
your research.
use. Just let me give an example. You guys asked me for specific examples, and I'm literally telling you about an operation that happened here at Hill Air Force Base that I think could be broadly applicable across the military. I'm the co-chair of the Depot Caucus, and we work on a consistent basis with my team, finding ways to make things more efficient. So please, that sounds like a horrible situation if we're not doing something productive and efficient with this steam-powered aspect. Like, we've got real good examples about how to move things off the backlog and into operation, and it's amazing. And so we've got good ideas, we've got good examples, and I would love to apply that to more. I focus heavily on Hill Air Force Base. I think things are run extremely well at Hill Air Force Base, right? Just giving that example. We had to go through the Nunn-McCurdy on Sentinel, and things are on track here, right? So if things are off track and there's budgetary issues, probably flaws from the start on something like particularly Sentinel, where I work and hear and get briefings from these professionals, they get things back on track. And so I think there's a lot of good positive that's going on at Hill Air Force Base. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Those examples, please.
Ian Parrish, I'm from Clearfield. I'm the guy that's going to take your seat, but today my question is, not only did you not sign the Epstein petition to release the files, but subsequently the DOJ is currently in contempt of Congress, and the president has appointed his personal criminal defense attorney as the attorney general. And your inaction and silence is complicity. So why are you protecting pedophiles?
Amen.
So the way that petitions work, they're called discharge petitions. They're a hyper-political tool. I'm just going to be very candid with you. Why did none of those Democrats that did the discharge petition do that when Biden was in office? Right? Like, this has been, this Epstein stuff, I don't have a firm, I had been reported early on about how I had calls for transparency. I very much supported once I was comfortable that innocent victim data, innocent individuals that were associated with all this, that information could be redacted and protected. Like, we moved forward with it, right? And the Oversight Committee Chairman, Jamie Comer, is actually doing a ton of really good work on it. That was all within our House conference that we knew that area was going on. A lot of political things happen with petition, I'm just gonna tell you that. And again, John, there's a line. I appreciate it, yes. And so it's not all what the headlines are saying. There's clear need, there's clear motivation to have transparency on this issue, and it's hard to deal with it in a political world. So thank you for the question. Appreciate it.
I am a 34-year federal employee, retired a couple years ago. Worked for the Air Force and the Forest Service. This week, the Forest Service rescinded the roadless rule, which protected 59 million acres of land that protects our water and air quality here in Utah. In addition to that, most wildfires are started by humans, not by lightning strikes or whatever. Allowing that to go forward with USDA, I think, is a really big mistake. I would like you to fight against the rescinding of the roadless rule. In addition to that, I know that DOJ cut about 25% of the employees there at the Forest Service, and now the Forest Service is being reorganized, and hundreds of my colleagues are leaving the service. I'm sure you know about the wildfire in Morgan. It's terrifying. We're in a terrible situation here in the state with wildfire. Those people who are fighting those fires are stretched to the limit because of budget cuts and because of personnel cuts, because of eliminating the regional office here and other places. Those people also aren't just administrative, they also serve in fire situations. I was in engineering. We do restoration work after. I'm incredibly distressed. I'm incredibly distressed about everything, but I'm just going to focus on that because I'm a former employee of the Forest Service, and I am beside myself with what's happening. So
Absolutely. So I'll absolutely take a look at the specifics on the roadless rule. Let me add, Lisa is,
No, she retired.
no, but that's her last name, right?
She retired.
I know, but that is her last name, correct?
It is her last
Yes,
name, but
okay.
she's no longer.
No, I understand. No, when she was moving into that retirement position, we
Sure.
met with her,
Sure.
and she forecasted, and it was all about the wildfire issue and having enough personnel to make sure that we
And
did
we're
it.
seeing the situation right now play out. We're halfway through
Yeah.
the season right now. People are going to be dying because there aren't enough people on the ground and backup to
And-
help people.
Yeah, I'm just emphasizing that we had met with Mary about
Sure.
that a while ago. We've been attuned to it. We've tried to, like, with the news coming in that there was going to be Forest Service here, headquartered here, I think there's opportunities to sort of,
There are, but lots of people.
I'm going to look at this as a potential here, as an opportunity, given that there is a positive on that side, and we can draw some attention to it, and I will gladly take a look at the specifics of that and finally make sure that we have personnel on it. And I remember her thinking that, and I go, she very well could be right, especially with the dry time, that to the extent that it plays out, let's assess where we are with personnel, and I would absolutely support making sure that we have sufficient, because it's an incredibly, terrifying issue. So thank you for that.
My name is first of all, I'd like to say that I was terribly and horribly upset with your promotion for the reduction of land down in Bears Ears. Yes. I literally cried when I saw the picture of you with Trump and everybody promoting this. I've been down there multiple times. I enjoy that area. My questions for you are very simple. First of all, why were Native tribes consulted in any way, shape? Were they? Did you go down there and talk to them? Okay?
Good.
And second of all, I'm gonna read this one. Energy Falls, which is one of the companies that will benefit from this reduction of land down in southern Utah. Its CEO and chairman bought thousands of shares of the company's stock just days before President Trump downsized the neighboring Bears Ears National Monument. Now there's a investigation going on. Are you going to support that investigation? What are you going to do with that investigation? How are you going to play that?
Yes, I would support an investigation, absolutely. Right, and you mentioned days before that White House Oval Office meeting. That's when I found out that that's what was being done. There had been work done with Sitla lands that the state had been heavily involved with. There was a CRA from the Malloy office that wasn't filed on time in the Senate. President Trump, right before that meeting, said, "What can you guys get done legislatively?" Like, so this doesn't have to, I mean, no one's gonna hear that comment, right? And, the ping-ponging nature of this, from administration to administration, I went from Obama back to Trump, back to Biden, back to Trump. I suspect it will continue on with whatever ends up happening at the White House. And we've got to be able to find a good sweet spot to be able to land and get done legislatively. Because what I did discuss with the tribes, because I went down there when Deb Haaland came, Secretary Haaland, I went down there, we had 2 days worth of meetings, we articulated, we talked about the need for a management plan. One thing I remember was that the tribal coalition, one of the representatives, as he was showing us a lot of the cultural significant spots, was saying, like, now that we have this designation, there's a lot more tension, and we're still seeing things get damaged because there has never been, since the designation, when Obama was leaving office, of a proper management plan. That's a failure on Congress's part. I'm being very transparent. And our inability to find that sweet spot is what's gonna make this a ping-ponging nature. Because I do think ultimately people believe that the acreage decided on by President Obama was an enormous amount of acreage that was more than what was needed to protect and preserve the cultural significance, the antiquities, the artifacts. Right?
Excuse me, are you gonna answer the question? Are you gonna support?
Yes, I will support. I don't know the specifics of the investigation, but I would absolutely support the investigation. Is it going through DOJ? Is it going through a state level organization, or where is it going through?
I would suggest that your role is to find out these
Absolutely,
things.
yeah.
You should research.
Seeing what's going on with all of this prediction market craziness. So
The
our
subscription
office,
that you can pay Trump to get what he's gonna tweet about, so you can bet on it.
That's right.
so
I forgot
I
about that.
apologize. I did ask the question and open it up to the
You
audience.
did.
That's on me.
We'd like to get in
Folks,
on that.
Who was the first Republican to put any legislation against this? An organization that Donald Trump Jr. is a board member of. Just take a wild guess. Just take a guess. I'll let you speak now. Yeah, I did. Thanks for the credit. Look, after doing that, there was that Maduro situation where the soldier's been accused of betting on when that operation was going to happen. There's been somebody that's been accused of betting on the teleprompter situation, right? Like, yes, I'll support an investigation. I'm thrilled with what we're seeing. We're trying to provide more enforcement opportunities for nefarious activity. So, absolutely. Thank you. All right, here we go again.
On this one, so, number one, I've got some comments, starting off with, Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche, paid off Michael Flynn, who pleaded guilty in the court of law to lying to the FBI. They gave him $1.6 million. Donald Trump was credibly accused in the Epstein files by a 13-year-old of sexual assault and physical abuse. Todd Blanche, again, is holding back 2 or 3 other FBI interviews that this 13-year-old did. You need to push for it.
Yep.
Then we go to, you brought him up, Howard Lutnick. How about a cold shoulder instead of talking to a pedophile? He took his kids to the island. That is sick. Now I'm gonna ask you a couple questions. Doge, you were part of the committee. I need to know, do you think you should be prosecuted? Because we now know Doge committed federal crimes.
Yep.
They stole our data, everybody in here.
Yep.
Number 2, way off the mark here. What are you doing, because Donald doesn't care about federal workers? What are you doing to make sure we get a pay raise and we get locality pay? It's only been like
Okay.
decades.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Go look at my track record on locality pay. We make requests for this in every single National Defense Authorization Act. It's a formula that's wrong. We're pushing for transparency on where the formula is. Utah, unfortunately, gets categorized as other when we have higher housing costs and prices, things like that, are not, I believe, congruent to what should be, particularly in that. So the areas of influence that I have on locality pay, we were able to get something done with respect to Dugway Proving Grounds. I know that's not right here, near here, but the powers that be within the military are very proud of the work that I'm doing and pushing specifically on locality pay. So thank you for that question. So federal employees.
That's not just military, right? Like that's
Um,
IRS, Forest Service.
Yeah, but it's the formula that we're trying to go after, and that can all be related to this area, right? It's this area that has traditionally been categorized as other, and I don't know every single employment agency or every single federal agency what it is, right? Well, obviously our largest is within the DoD. So, but yeah, that's an area that we're tracking and very, very involved with. So thank you for that. Great.
Hi, how you doing, man?
Great.
Town halls are great, right?
I do enjoy them. I'm feeling better too.
Sitting in line gives you a huge perspective on all this stuff, just listening to everybody. And, my name's from blue collar, on a landscaping business. I've got a lot of friends in the industry, and not just landscaping, but other blue collar work as well. And it's just, it's not going okay, man. It's not. There's not a lot of guys out here making money right now. And there's a lot of us out here that are making decisions on, feeding our kids or paying our mortgage or, taking care of that loan that we got for the business, because we strapped in and said, we're gonna, put ourselves out on a limb here and, do it, get it done, right? But you talk about like the investments for the kids and things like that, and I just, we can't afford it. I don't know how we can afford to invest for our kids right now. I have 4. How many kids do you have?
4 boys.
I got 4, 14 and under. And it's tight. It's really tight, and we're making decisions every day on how to spend the money that we do have. And, I did have questions. I had questions ready, and I know that, time's up and things like that, but at the end of the day, there's no question that I can ask you that I'm gonna get an answer for that's gonna be worth anything. So instead of trying to ask you a question, I'm just, just gonna humble up a little bit and tell you that it's not going good, man. It's not. Gas prices are through the roof. I've been getting threatened with, the electricity getting shut off, just like a lot of my neighbors are. It's hard to afford all these things. My house I bought in Sunset for $89,000 in 2012. They're trying to tell me now it's worth $330,000. Which to some it might be, a great investment, but at the end of the day, it's just they're just jacking up property taxes. Okay? And those property taxes are going for these billion-dollar projects that are going up and down this street. You can drive this, you're gonna see them. You're gonna see them, and it's just unreal. All the wasted money on these things. So
Can I ask a couple questions to you?
Yeah.
You took advantage of the child tax credit.
Yeah, I have.
If we hadn't have completed the one big beautiful bill that was dispersed among this group.
Hey, you can talk about taxes and lowering things all you want, but at the end of the day,
That's what your main issue is.
no, it's not. No, it's affordability.
Correct.
It's about
yes.
living here. It's about
Absolutely.
my
So I'm
grandfather.
gonna highlight something, if
My
we hadn't gotten
grandfather
that.
was on the city council here years ago, right? Great grandparents ran Naylor Floral over behind the mortuary for years. We've been here. We've been here for years, decades. And it's just, we can't afford it anymore.
Okay.
I know with me and along with a lot of my friends, if we all lost our houses today, we wouldn't be able to buy them back. And that's a problem.
Right, no,
So
wages
everybody's
have not
talking
gone
about
up
this federal
congruent
level and what we're gonna
with
do
cost
about
of living.
fraud and abuse and with the president and all these other things, but I just for 1 minute just think
Let's jump
about,
on.
what we need.
Okay, absolutely. I'm gonna make a point here though.
So,
Had we not completed the one big beautiful bill, right, that was disparaged in this group, the child tax credit would have gone from 2,000 to 1,000. It would have gone all the way back down to 1,000. We actually moved it to 2,200 and we indexed it to inflation so it will never go back down below where it is today. It would have gone back to $1,000. That would have been a significant hit on affordability.
it's trickle down effects that don't work.
Okay, I get the frustration because
Just the last older pit in the area.
with gas prices,
Double the prices.
I'm equally frustrated with the gas prices, right? And you're absolutely right. And that is the single thing that hits us the hardest.
The trickle down effect.
Well, I mean, in what context? We can debate
In what
for one thing.
context, you believe in trickle down economics, you believe in Reaganomics. That giving the wealthy tax breaks.
So I
And
covered,
that's gonna affect us.
so
If you're talking about the big beautiful bill, okay, that give all these tax breaks to
to who do they give the tax rates to?
billionaires.
Gosh, you guys are getting it, I swear. So, sincerely, the 2017 tax bill and the 2025 tax bill, all right, let's just go. We're good. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
Our kids' clothes, our fucking food that's skyrocketed through the roof.
Okay,
Shop after
so
groceries.
I am going to reiterate one thing here real quick, and we're going to go to the next question. The majority of the 2017 and the 2025 tax policy bill was directed at the child tax credit, standard deduction, small business tax deduction, right? That's where the majority of the benefit went. And anything that was done on an individual or family-related tax policy was income capped. So let me add one more thing. Does anybody know the term SALT? Okay, SALT. The acronym for state and local taxes. So before 2017, that was unlimited. So all of the wealthy second property owners that have second properties out in, let's call it Hamptons. This is always given an example because this is a really hotbed topic for New York. If you own a big property in the Hamptons, you have a high tax bill, then you have, let's call it $50,000 worth of taxes on your estate out in the Hamptons. And then let's say you lived in a place in Manhattan, okay? You could take all of that deduction. You could take all of the state and local taxes that you paid, deduct it from your federal income taxes, okay? We then, in 2017, we capped it that you couldn't do more than $10,000. Who do you think that hits the worst? It's the people with wealth, right? We literally the opposite is true, but it is such an easy talking point for my Democrat colleagues to say, oh, this is just a tax benefit for the billionaires. Folks, it's not true. Go look at the SALT, what we did in 2017. We've capped it. We cap income on every single provision that we do in this world, right? We do. If you want to believe me or not, that's up to you. But I'm telling you the facts, and you can know the facts by going and looking at it, okay? Thank you for that and being allowed to clarify that piece. If you pay $100,000 in state and local taxes, you then don't have to pay a commiserate amount in their federal income taxes. So we capped it at 10, so they couldn't then just go into their federal taxes and write that off and not pay those federal taxes. That actually made billionaires pay a lot more in federal income taxes, and that's the reality. But that's unfortunate that it doesn't get out there well enough, and maybe that's our problem.
From just a couple of quick bullet points from what we talked about. Military budget, $1 trillion a year, but we're out of bullets after 2 or 3 weeks in a pretty shitty war. Social Security, you don't need a commission to raise the amount that people are taxed. Don't cap it at your salary of $175, $185. Have it keep going, problem solved. You don't need a commission, very easy. The math is there, I can show you. Trump accounts, your signature thing, you couldn't name it after yourself, I'm sorry about that.
Invest more accounts. I kind of like it's got a nice ring to it.
Well, that's not what he's calling it,
I know.
But last year you talked about the deficit. That's $6 billion against our deficit. Had you put that money into something like a poor person, they would have spent it and it would have gone through our economy. This way, that dollar sits for 18 years, nobody's gonna touch it. So you banked tax dollars and increased the deficit. Young lady before me had a whole laundry list of things that she was upset about that the administration had done. Your response in terms of what you railed against was Greenland, one of the most ridiculous things that he proposed, and you kind of skipped railing against all the other important issues that she named. Taxes on billionaires on the one big beautiful bill. All of what you said is right. Our taxes are better as a result of that, but the effective tax rate on billionaires is still ridiculously low. As a result of that, we don't have money coming into the budget, and you can't spend it. So poor people are still suffering because we don't have that income coming from those billionaires because their tax rates are so low. Their lives wouldn't change if their tax rates went up. We haven't talked about social media. I'd love for you to talk about social media. I think it's really killing our country right now. And my biggest issue with you, sir, is despite the fact that you're a great center fielder, you're a great guy, you're a great family guy, I think you've been too quiet. If you and 3 or 4 or 5 congressmen decided this administration doesn't work, you could have been an entire, you could have changed so much. 4 or 5 of you could have changed the entire course of this country, and you haven't. You have $2 million in PAC money against a competitor who's got 60 grand and no PAC money. It's kind of ridiculous the way this whole thing is going. You could be the difference. Every one of us would support you. Instead, we're kind of looking at alternatives because you're not standing up for the country and for the state.
Again, I understand the criticism, and there's a lot to respond to there. She said something I wanted to highlight. Alright, if I think about it, I'll mention it, but no, I totally get it. Again, like I said, I've done something to make every single person disagree with me, and I think I've done something to make every single person district, if they're paying attention, to agree with me. And not a lot of politicians do this job that way. They pick a group that's gonna get them reelected, and they will kind of just adhere to that specific group. I go back to, I'm gonna have support of the administration, but I'm also gonna be able to push back. And I'm doing it in as thoughtful a way as I know how, so thank you for that.
We don't see that pushback as the criticism.
That was actually my question too, and I didn't get that answer. We're not seeing any pushback. We're not seeing any stand up. Only one or two people could shut the whole thing down.
So, when federal employees were going through their, all the things that the first few months of the grifts, the 5 bullet point email theme, like, I wish you were in the day-to-day when we go and directly talk to our liaison at the White House. And, you know, multiple scenarios like that over the last, 18 months. So it's never gonna be enough for you. I satisfy one person, then I dissatisfy another person. That's just the way the world works. My team has my back. My team sees the criticism I take in a Republican primary. They see the criticism I take in a general, right? We're not here on political purposes, but that's what I'm going through right now. And they've seen a work of 6 years. That this is a cheesy example. Did anybody know the movie Knight's Tale? Heath Ledger's greatest movie, I think, where he's in the stocks and his team goes and stands by him. I guarantee you, every single one of my team members, and I would do the same for them, would have my back and they would disagree with you wholeheartedly. But it's not known, it's not well known, but my team sees it. And at the end of the day, like, they're the best people that I work with, and they will, and I have their back, they have my back. And I sincerely just want you to know, like, I will never satisfy everybody, and that's not, and I can't. But I can look at myself in the mirror, and I can push back, and I can, I've seen my body of 6 works. It's not perfect. We've not gone through perfect things. We've had inflation, been a constant issue in my entire 6 years, right? And that's at the core of what I know people are frustrated with, because I poll, I identify, I figure out what's some of the biggest concerns. One of the things that I highlight is I'm on Ways and Means, and I do things like Trump account, Invest America, call it whatever you want. I actually love what Wes Moore said, Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. He said, I don't care what you call it, I'll always invest in children. I wish everybody could have that approach, right? I would jokingly love to call it the Invest More accounts. I think there would be way more people that signed up for it if that were the case. Maybe it's in the future, who knows? That initiative started because a very wealthy guy, very successful hedge fund guy out in Silicon Valley was having a conversation with his son. And his son said, Dad, it's just, I struggle to understand why we have so much and others don't. And like, that was a bee in his bonnet. And for 5 years, he built a CEO council. He built a groundswell to be able to get a very bipartisan concept. This whole concept of sort of an investment account starting at the age of 0, a seed funded account, as a way to, get people in saving for their investments. Where I'll tell you just a quick story. And this is the way I believe and the way I think. So evaluate this however you would like. But the administration said, hey, we want to do something to encourage, we have a low birth rate in our nation. That population we've got to do a better job replacing. We have a higher senior rate, right? And it's, the worker to beneficiary ratio on our retirement programs is completely strained. And we want to do something to incentivize the younger generation. And and there was a concept of a baby bonus. You have a baby, you get as kind of was mentioned, a $500 bump. You get a $500 to $1,000 injection. Here's the deal. Congratulations. We want to incentivize this, right? Because you're dealing with, levels of different benefits and offsets and all that stuff that we have to work with. And I injected at that point. I said, great, could be a good PR move, but that money will be immediately consumed. That money is immediately consumed. I don't believe it has actual staying power for that child. And that's why we proposed this investment account, the Invest America account initiative, because I think we can do, with a little bit of money and a little bit of investment, can make a much bigger, broader impact in that child's life going forward. It would be great to have some diapers and formula in that moment and be able to use that for that. And maybe there is some level of economic stimulus like that. It won't be much because, there's 3 million babies born a year. It is what it is, right? But I switched it to, this is going to teach younger individuals. I remember at Mount Ogden Middle School when I went into my economics class and we had a mock checkbook, right? And I learned how to balance a checkbook. I still remember the checkbook. It was the coolest thing because I'd seen my mom use it before. My children will probably never see a checkbook. But I saw it, I recognized it, I internalized it. And today, and in the next 10 years, when kids go to their, 5th grade economics intro, where they go to the junior achievement seminars that they get to do. My son was part of the junior achievement thing, and they got to go down and do a mock day in like a city. There's a mayor, there's a salesman, there's all that kind of stuff. They're going to be able to have lessons that say, hey, look, what started as $1,000 is now $3,500. And if you put $20 a month, maybe you're mowing a lawn or doing something like that, you put $20 a month, guess what? That will grow. When you're 18, it'll be worth this. And if you need to use someone for some education, great. But if you can avoid it and you can save it until you're 50, 55 years old, we will have fundamentally changed the retirement program in our country, the way that it needs to change. So, yes, I know you're going to be critical of me. But folks, my team has my back, and I am doing many of the things that you're frustrated with. You see it, you don't see it. It's not something I can ultimately control, but I can say with sincerity that if you were in the day-to-day with us, you would recognize it more. But I'm not asking for that. That's not a reality. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm trying to do whatever I can when I do have a chance to be back home to communicate that. Please.
Hello. Thanks again for being here. I know it's difficult for any politician to appease everybody. So again, thank you. To piggyback off of the pushback aspects that many of us are getting discouraged about, and the Trump's continual chipping away at separation of powers, he's already been toying around with the idea of 2028 election. Are you going to stand up against him and remind him that that is a violation? And what are you going to do when he actually does that?
Okay, I'll address that. And I'm just taking notes and let's ask.
My name is and my question is, with your history, you haven't supported a congressional stock trading ban, and you accepted over $1 million from corporate PACs, including AIPAC and pro-Israel money. And so, not the past, but the future, what specific safeguards are you willing to commit to ensure that corporate donors and your personal finance interests do not interfere with your positions on defense spending, data centers, all the stuff that actually impacts the people who live there? Thank you.
My name's, I'm an emergency physician, and so I want to know what you're going to do to try to get more people insured. I know that with the big beautiful bill, there was basically a lot of cuts. Basically, people are going to be kicked off Medicare or Medicaid, and you talk a lot about trying to drive healthcare prices down and stuff. I've read that on your site and stuff like that, but I don't think it's very meaningful for people who don't have insurance and they can't afford it. They're stuck between low income, being on Medicare and getting kicked off that, or not making enough, or not having a job that provides sufficient health insurance for them. And so I think the elephant in the room is insurance. People need insurance to cover their bills, and I'd like to know what you plan to do about that. Thank you.
Hi, my name is from, and I was just curious, you've talked a lot about the war, and I would like to ask you to just recognize or try and think about if those were your kids at war. We've heard reports of military members jumping ship. So what would you do if those were your kids? I assume you would be heartbroken about that. So I'm curious your thoughts.
That's Jordan, by the way.
Thank you.
My question for you is, how come you continue to go forward with funding Israel when we here ourselves in northern Utah don't have, the appropriate health care, we don't have free education for higher education, all these things that we give to Israel, and you continue to allow us to give them money. I understand having a foothold in the Middle East. I get that that's important.
Yeah.
But I can't see how someone who claims to be LDS and a temple recommend holder can go along with genocide of the Palestinian people.
Hi, I'm again from, so I want to talk about the SAVE Act, which should have been already out of session and should not be brought up again. It is illegal against the 25th Amendment. It hurts women, and in particular, it hurts poor people because they cannot provide the documents or the passports that they need. And I want to know what you think about that. And also, I want to say that I'm happy that you stood up for us when you could, but we need to do better.
I'd like to thank you for addressing us. So many people in your position are not doing that, so thank you. The concerns that I have, people have talked about the Epstein files, and I really feel strongly that there shouldn't be one set of standards for the rich and the politically connected, and another set of standards for us mere mortals. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the tax code. Everything you said was true, but that has to do with ordinary earned income. Most of the really wealthy people have to do with investment income. And what they do is, guys, this is the loophole. They form shell companies, they draw money from those shell companies, get bankruptcy, and they never pay a dime of taxes. Our president's done it 8 times. They ought to have to pay taxes like the rest of us. I know that that's one issue. The other issue is the way our current president is operating is a near dictatorship. He's dictating everything without any involvement with the Congress. It's your job to allocate money and to spend money and to do those things, but he's doing that universal. And I'm a lifelong Republican, and that's what's bothering me.
Hey Blake, okay, Social Security, will you commit to scrapping the cap? And then in terms of like all the 2017 bills and all these things, and this gentleman brought up a great point in terms of like rich people moving their money, fund the IRS. Fund the IRS. They give so much back to the American people. So enforcement is huge. Not enforcement on middle class people, but enforcement on the rich and powerful. And then last thing, I forgot what the last thing was. You know what? Just keep it those two. We'll keep it at that.
Hi again. I just wanted to let you know, it's like a guy who's about to lose his business, $4,000 in tax credits doesn't really mean anything. So I just wanted to offer that perspective. On August 11th, Nature magazine reported that the NIH has started turning away grant applications whose primary function is informing policymakers and legislators. Internal documents state plainly that policymakers are no longer considered a stakeholder group within the NIH's mission, which weaponizes funding based on whether a project's findings support the administration's political agenda. Do you think scientific research should be dictated by political agendas, or should political agendas be informed by science?
Okay, with the gentleman that walked out, absolutely. I didn't want my comments to be viewed as insensitive in any way, shape, or form. But sincerely, what I was trying to highlight was with respect to the tax bill that went through in July of 2025, at the end of 2025, your standard deduction that I guarantee everybody in this room uses, I can't guarantee that. Most likely, 91% of Americans use, and it's targeted at lower and middle income Americans, that would have also been cut in half. So what I was trying to emphasize with the tax piece was that if we hadn't got that bill done, we don't get credit for doing stuff that stays the same. There was a few things in there like overtime, reduced taxes on overtime, reduced taxes on Social Security recipients with the standard deduction and tips and things like that. Like those were additions. The research and development expensing that small businesses can take advantage of is a real big boon, right? That we got that done. That was new jet fuel, but the vast majority of it was making sure that it didn't get slashed. And so that's the point that I was trying to make in that case. I think that's a very, very important point to make with respect to the tax policy. Moving the child deduction, the child deduction from 2,000 to 1,000, standard deduction being cut in half as well, would have been significantly worse. And we saw positive things happening during this year's tax season with respect to people were paying more reasonable rates of tax, but also our tax receipts coming into the government were also high too, were also higher, right? When you lower the tax rate, we're competitive overseas. Therefore, companies aren't setting their domicile, their tax domicile. If you're a multinational firm, you can set your tax domicile in multiple different countries because you do business there. But if Ireland has a 13% FDII rate, and we have a 16% FDII rate, most companies are going to set their domicile up over in Ireland. But by us making ours 13% and on par and competitive, not even lower, then people are now paying more taxes back into the U.S. They're reinvesting. They're not inverting. There's no more inversions happening like there was before 2017. We're actually getting more revenue by having competitive taxes. So that's it. So I'm going through all of them. That was one of the questions on the list. 2028, yes, absolutely will not support President Trump running for president in 2028. He has said to a big group, this may make you even a little more frustrated, but he's like, 2028, that hat selling a lot, and of course I'm not going to do it, but the media, gets a rise out of this. And I don't play those kind of games with my particular role. President Trump is not going to be running for office in 2028. That is not the case. I would not support that. The trading ban, I actually just voted, the House of Republicans just voted and moved a stock trading legislation. So I encourage you to take a look at that. We voted for it. It's a responsible bill to it.
Yeah.
Right, I'm not disparaging.
Democrats for voting against it.
So I did not disparage Democrats from not voting against it. I understand why they didn't vote for it.
You're the only one that didn't.
Well, what I'm saying is that I don't agree with tying SABAC to every single piece of legislation, right? And it's been a season that's been going for us. We can move some things, but the Senate is not going to do that too. So, I have that understanding. I've never disparaged a single Democrat for not voting for the stock that trading because SABE was tied to it. So that's not a game that I feel like is fair to criticize me for. I think the legislation on the stock trading piece is thoughtful, substantive. There's a lot that gets said about this. I get accused of felonies that are absolutely, completely false, untrue. Nothing associated with it is even remotely close. That's what I had to deal with in the primary the whole time. And folks, do you realize what it is going out there, having broad communication about you, getting accused of a felony, and having real no recourse other than the individual taking it down? Okay, great, but there's no accountability on making a blatant accusation against me, my integrity, when it's completely false. I've never done a single improper thing. I turned in the first few months I was in Congress. We turned in my financial advisor turned in the reports. I didn't really know about this program. It's called Periodic Trade Reports. When I recognized that, oh no, I think I need to submit these. We turned them in late, and we paid the late fee. That's all that was. But then for 6 years, I get accused of insider trading. It's absolute bogus, right? So yeah, in some cases, this job is miserable, especially when you get accused of felonies that are completely untrue. So take a look at that bill. I think that bill is substantive, and I think that it would actually, I think it would pass the Senate. And if you have it on its own, it will get very broad bipartisan support. Ensuring more. we have to be willing to address, I'll give you an example, feel free to take a look at it, but there's companies that are being innovative and thoughtful and kind of like figuring this out on their own on how to go about doing good healthcare plans, particularly for their employees. But take a look at something called Sidecar Health, right? This is sort of a a la carte, bite-size, they're more affordable options. We've got to be able to use different unique groups of individuals, different conglomerates of different companies here and there, maybe smaller companies can work together to be able to provide affordable insurance. Because I totally agree, we need to be, insuring is the name of the game, right? I do not believe in $0 premiums, even if it was $5 for Affordable Care Act for a premium. There would at least be a deterrent to having people get signed up for programs that they maybe don't even know that they're on. And insurance companies are getting taxpayer dollars going directly to them when they're not even having any claims made on a multiple year period. That's something that I definitely do disagree with. And the concept of, I'm gonna go through all these lists before I take, and then we gotta actually go, I apologize. So yes, I do agree. $0 premium, something I don't agree with. And I think when you look at the body of work that $0 premiums added, you have very high percentages of people that have coverage. A, might not know they have coverage, and B, they're never making a claim. They might even be double covered. And that's just taxpayer dollars going directly to insurance companies, and insurance companies are collecting all that money, right? Go look at our thing where we have all the major insurance companies in, and there was a lot of Republicans firing shots to deal with this issue about that. Inflation, when you look at it in particular silos, I want to emphasize some real positive work that we did with respect to federal student loans. So we put a cap on the amount of money that a student can take out for varying degree programs, and we you know, some degree programs were a lower cap, some degree programs were a higher cap, and things like that. It's not the perfect it's not the perfect formula or equation yet. I think we can definitely get closer to it, but just by doing that and capping what some MBA programs would cost, there are colleges that are now lowering their tuition to under the cap. So why in the world were they $35,000 higher than what they're now offering? UC Davis is doing it. I commend them for doing it. I also question, well, why were they up as high as they should have been? When you constrain some of the monetary supply, you will reduce inflation. Now, this is just in one particular sector, right? So it's not going to have broad economic impact, but that concept is getting more, we're injecting that more and more where we can, so that inflation, that cost of tuition doesn't skyrocket as much. When have you ever seen a reduction of tuition down $35,000 almost overnight? It just doesn't necessarily happen, but we're taking an approach to capping what can be taken out so these kids aren't coming out with mortgage-sized student loans because they're, what's that?
Can you do that with gas?
Well, great question.
And health.
I'm not, like, so let me just, so healthcare, candidly, is, you know, we did not get rid of Obamacare, right? We did not get rid of ACA. What we got rid of was the $0 premium aspect that existed for 4 years during COVID, that was set to expire anyway, right? And so I believe that there is downward pressure you can put on, the insurance world that could help lower it. It's not as quick as something like tuition because that's a much more simplistic, kind of a one-to-one. When healthcare's got so much, a myriad of issues. So, but agree. Yeah, I'm always, the concept of losing 12 soldiers. The day we lost 3 and there was still 1 missing, very frustrated that we're in the position where we are right now, and I hope that we can get out of this in a positive way. Destroying the ballistic capabilities for Iran so they couldn't protect the potential and the forthcoming nuclear program. That was something that was a good thing. It was a positive thing. I've met with our military people. We are involved. Hill Air Force Base is deployed in these areas. But folks, our personnel are going out on their operations and they're almost feeling more comfortable than when they go back to the base. And I've really, we've had attacks on our bases in the region that are usually a little more tranquil. And now there's a lot of anxiety and concern over that, right? Because that's what we've lost in Kuwait, like you haven't heard that. So the drone capability and the leverage that Iran has been able to have over the Straits of Hormuz, I believe was in this calculation. And I'm very, very encouraged and hopeful that we can get out of this. But relating it to my kids, I would be just as concerned as if we're out losing other soldiers right now. Obviously, getting more close to home. My kids are only 13 and younger, but it's very concerning. Israel is a strong ally. I get it. I don't see a one-to-one for being able to solve all of our healthcare issues. The vast majority of our budget, folks, $7 trillion, $1.5 trillion Social Security, $1 trillion approximately to Medicare, $700 to Medicaid. Right? We're spending a lot of money on healthcare. The amount that we're spending to Israel, they're not commiserate. I get that. It's easy to make those comparisons, and it's probably very frustrating when you're in a situation where, why are we involved? But it is important to have allies, and I have defended allies even against the current administration. As you talk about Denmark, I'm supposed to be in Denmark this week. I'm literally canceled the trip to Denmark because I wanted to coach my son's football team. And I didn't want another week. I wanted to be here with you folks for this lunch hour. It's going over a lunch hour. I was supposed to be in Denmark this week. I reminded that to my wife at the start of the week. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you the final question. So when we get done with this, please save your arm, Sterling, and I'll ask you the final question. I told my wife, hey, remember, I'm supposed to be in Denmark this week. I'm going to be around with more there for the coaching, and how great of a husband am I? I kind of inject that every once in a while. And the next day when I was nitpicking about something back home, she looked at me and she goes, I still think there's flights to Denmark. Because I'm gone a lot, and she has her own systems the way she runs things, and if I ever try to nitpick about anything, this or that or the other, we won't get into that. She was very interested in looking for a flight for me to go to Denmark, which says something. Okay, SAVE Act. At the core, I think we can all agree that Utah does, they overlap with our driver's license division. We do our voter rolls, we clean them, we keep them current, and voter ID piece, states vary in how they do it. There's a signature verification associated with what's on our driver's license. Like, I've been very supportive of the way Utah does their elections, right? There's been no version that's passed the House that had a prohibition on mail-in balloting, right? That doesn't just happen in a vacuum. Obviously, President Trump communicates a lot about mail-in balloting, but where we are with respect to any of those versions that have passed, they don't have that prohibition. We're talking three major things: the voter rolls and cleaning that I think is very important. The voter ID, and then of course citizenship verification. Right. So, what we just saw in New Jersey, it's kind of a double edge here. Should have never happened. We need safeguards in place to make it so a whole bunch of people that are non-citizens don't get signed up and get registered. And approximately 400 actually went through and voted. And New Jersey, as far as I've, at least the last I read on this, was that they're going to work to do whatever prosecutions and stuff that they can do. So that's a good thing. It's a way to shine a light on it, make sure that we're not letting that happen. But I agree with those things, right? And that's what the SAVE piece is out to accomplish, is to make sure we do it. Now, what are some of the concerns? Well, I'm concerned that we're going to have a lot of people that their home printer might not work. And so a simple photocopy of their ID, put in their mail-in ballot. There's going to be those days, and maybe they wait until the last day to send it in, and then their printer's not working, and they can't get it, and they might not get their ballot in. I don't want that to be the case, right? So we've tried to provide requirements and funding options for people to be able to go and get that done. And so where there's concerns, we try to alleviate as well, right? And tracking down a birth certificate for a lady, a married woman that has had to change her name and doesn't have a passport because she's not someone that travels, right? Not everybody has passports. A small percentage of folks actually do. There's going to be a rub there, and we need to be able to provide the resources that are doing it. Most recently, versions of talking about this is certain grant money that would be associated with making sure you can implement these programs. You know, a lot of that's really a big Senate issue that's going on right now, but I think at the core, we can agree, you have to be a citizen to vote, and you can, and a voter ID is not too much
You
to
already
require.
do.
Yeah.
You're trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist, sir.
Well, and the folks in
400 people
the
in
folks in New
240
Jersey,
million
the folks in New
population.
Jersey would agree that there is a
400
problem.
people.
400 people is a lot of people.
It's not.
400 people, non-citizens, voting in the election. It's great that they caught it. Let's put some safeguards in place to do it, and I get
They're there.
So I get that. That's the perspective. I'm admitting that there's thoughtful concerns that
400 versus how many women without birth certificates?
we can go and provide, make sure that
It's not the federal
we properly communicate and get things done. We can
That's a
go.
state problem.
See how this plays out. Again,
It's a state problem.
we'll see continue how this is put in. And the most recent versions that we've, that have been discussed are, okay, what can we provide the states as far as any type of funding requests? The real dollars that would be provided for this to be able to help implement. By
It's a
letting
state's
states-
responsibility to run elections, not the federal
Exactly,
government.
I get that.
Congressman, I understand your arguments, but if you're representing
Okay,
us,
that's
hear
why-
how we're sounding. Represent us.
Yeah, I understand that, and I
Don't vote Republican, vote this district.
Okay, cap gains. So that's what the argument basically becomes. Should cap gains be higher than what they are? Right? And cap gains I don't see any proposals in play right now that have any potential. Cap gains are where they're going to be. If you all of a sudden increase cap gains to 50%, you'll see, I believe, less economic activity. Less economic activity will, I think it will lower the percentage or the amount of actual revenue coming in. That's a concern for me. So 25% of passive income keeps a lot of investment in there. New businesses are started up. More economic activity happens, more jobs are created. What happens? More taxes are paid, right? So I don't believe that a sharp increase of cap gains might bring in a little more extra revenue now, but on the long term, it might actually reduce the amount of tax revenue coming in. So that's where I am on cap gains. 25% is on passive income. It changes a little bit state to state, but it's 20%, 5% from the state. Like that's a significant portion. And again, back to what I said earlier, highest earners pay 70% of all taxes paid in the U.S. And so I just don't buy the concept of waiting people going to pay their fair share. Give me a number.
90% of the money.
Give me a number. Is it 82%?
Filing for bankruptcy on their personal expenses.
I added in here bankrupt. Okay, we're getting away from this, folks. I'm doing my very best in a very constrained time period, even though we're gonna go on 2 hours here to communicate. I'm not an expert on bankruptcy law. You can expect me to be very well versed in all issues, but I am absolutely certain people have taken advantage of this, and I'm absolutely certain it has saved people to be able to get back on their feet and be able to produce something good in the economy. So I can't opine on it, particularly to that level that you might be frustrated with. So, Social Security I talked about. I get you say there shouldn't have to be a commission, but folks, if you just raise the cap to unlimited, guess what? There's still a shortfall. Go show me actuarial data that says that's not the case. So you've got to take a multi-pronged approach at this. There has to be a look at age, right? For folks 40 and younger, there's got to be a look at what that age would ultimately be. Is there means testing that needs to be associated with it? I think you all agree with means testing, right? And I don't think there's a scenario in a commission where the cap would be raised. So it's just not like this easy, simple, okay, let's just do the cap and this is raise the cap and then, because there's a significant downturn. It's a lot of tax dollars going to small businesses that produce FICA and produce ordinary income, right? You have to be constantly thinking about all the externalities. And that's the joy of my job. Listen, we're done. I'm just gonna move to the rest of it. Fund IRS, we have funded IRS. I've never put, so For a month and a half, Democrats shut the government down, right? I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. They shut the government down for the longest in history.
For no reason.
For a healthcare issue that had nothing to do with the appropriations bills. That's the reality. You argue with me all you want, that's the reality, right? And, I have worked very hard to make sure that we have, appropriations funding, moving in the right direction, funded. I've taken tough votes that I get criticized from all angles back here, for a CR, right? I don't like CRs, but sometimes a CR is better than a shutdown, and it's always better than a shutdown, in my opinion. So, that's a tough thing. I've been very supportive of the organization, particularly here in the first district, and we've gone to bat for them, even when, times are tough, the political expediency wouldn't allow for it. I kind of talked about taxes related to affordability. Yes, obviously believe science. Do I think that we've always nailed it? Do I think that, that our government agencies, all things related to, I just forgot the term, that provides grants to educational purposes. There's a lot of redundancies in this world, but there's a lot of good work that's being done. Yes, we need to let science drive things, but I would argue that we don't always do it. And so taking back or constraining some of our spending to make sure we're taking a hard look at it is very important. And don't forget, very frustrated, when with the esteemed benefit piece to autism. I was underwhelmed, and I thought there was going to be something more substantive there. My wife was hurt. She's like, geez, I'm almost feeling like I could have been blamed for our son's condition because I probably did Tylenol at some point in our pregnancy. That was really frustrating. I voice that. I make that known. I do it for closed doors. I did it in open doors. So thank you. Hey, ma'am, you're going to bring us home, and then we're going to wrap up.
You didn't address my issue.
That's
Well, how can you support, if you're not standing up against the genocide of Palestine, you're complicit.
Yes. Is it a genocide?
Do you believe it's a genocide if we're bombing women and children and infrastructure that they're dependent on living?
I would never want to see another October 7th. Right? So I'm not skirting the question.
No,
but it's not so simple, cut and dry that there's conflict and then you expect me to solve conflict from 10,000 miles away.
I expect you to have a battle zone.
Yes, I have supported Israel funding, right? I believe they've been a strong ally for us. Do I like seeing what goes on in Gaza? Absolutely not. It's tragic. I have been over and tried to understand these issues as much as possible. It's been a part of my previous career, right? So no, but nothing is just simple, cut and dry, simple soundbite that you can get me to say. These are complex, very difficult issues, and what is it one? I'm not gonna address that right now because that's not it's not up to this conversation right now. I am telling you, go find all the work that I did with 2 Democrat senators, Panetta and Schneider, to encourage Egypt to pull as many people out of Gaza as possible. I don't think many other Republicans were leading an effort like that with me, right? So look deeper, figure out, and I'm not just some of these things are not yes or no, but go look at the work that I did with Egypt to see if we can get that bridge and get as much humanitarian aid, pushing Israel for more humanitarian aid wherever is possible, doing that as much as I can. So the criticisms, again, great, but they're not congruent with the actual effort that I put in. Ma'am, you're gonna take us home.
Simple yes or no.
I don't like yes or no questions, I'll be honest. I think context matters in my job every single day. And so you can ask the yes or no, and I'll see how I answer.
Given that, I'm assuming you're not a doctor.
No, I'm not a doctor.
Okay, given that, I'm assuming that you have personal interactions with Trump.
A handful, very few, mostly about the investment companies.
Simple question, yes or no. Do you believe Trump's mental well-being is compromised?
No, I don't. I have not. I've been in close settings. I've chatted with him. I don't believe it's compromised. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, sir.